Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Shady Boucher with Combat Sports UK, and I'm delighted to be joined by the LFA and Lights Out middleweight champion Ozzy Diaz, who makes his UFC debut on November 23rd against Ming Yang Zhang in the promotion's long overdue return to Macau, China. Ozzy, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy training schedule to speak to me today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm blessed, brother. Blessed is the only word I can describe what I've been feeling the last few weeks. But thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Glad to have you here. So this Thanksgiving season might feel a little bit weird or different this time with your UFC debut coming up. So in general, how is camp going, especially as you prepare to travel with your team to the other side of the world
Yeah.
for such a big moment?
Camp's been going great, man. Never easy, but I feel good, bro. Like amazing, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm like right where I need to be. I feel like I've said before, I feel like I can actually just fight tomorrow, you know what I mean? I'm ready to go, bro. I'm fucking ready to go.
That's good. That's good. That's good energy. That's the energy you need for a debut.
Yeah,
You,
yes, sir.
you fought with a couple other promotions, King of the Cage, Bellator, LFA, very notable big promotions. How do you
Yeah.
feel like that experience has prepared you for the UFC? And do you think those past fights kind of take some of the pressure off from making a debut again?
Yeah, I feel like more so mentally, like Bellator, LFA, like fighting main event, LFA. Yeah, it prepared me for this moment, and I feel like I had to go through those challenges, you know, fighting high level guys there to get me to this point. And yeah, man, I'm just excited, bro. I feel like it's to say it was long overdue is probably not correct. I feel like it's just at the right time. If that mean in my life personally, I feel like everything had to happen for this moment, and I'm gonna make the most out of it, man.
Yeah, that's a good outlook. I mean,
Yeah.
speaking of some of those other fights and experiences, you fought Joe Pyfer on the Contender Series, and even though it didn't go to your way, I'm sure that challenge gave you some experience and some UFC experience, especially. So, what's it like to now have found a path back to the UFC?
Um, you know, I like I said before in another interview, I feel like losing to Joe Pyfer is probably like the best thing that could have happened to me. At that moment, it didn't seem like it. You know what I mean? I felt like, all right, well, my shot is done. You know what I mean? Like, that's it, you know. But I had to take a step back and look at my life in general from like the outside and kind of just go through the motions of life. I never stopped training. I did go through some like injuries, so that prolonged my return a little bit more, but I feel like I had to make changes outside of fighting to have the mentality I have now to the man, I'm just having fun now. I feel like I needed to mature as a fighter, as a person, as a man, you know, and I feel like I'm there, you know.
Yeah, anybody who's watched the fights you've had since then can tell that you're definitely having fun, and it sounds like those
Yeah.
changes are very effective.
No,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, if anybody looks at your record since then and even before, I mean, they'll notice that you never really needed the judges for a win. So I have to ask, like, what do you credit your ability to find that knockout or submission to? Like, do you and your team specifically focus on finishing the fight early when in camp, or does it just happen naturally?
It really just happens naturally. Like it's funny, I just had this conversation with my team on Monday, I believe. Like I feel like I get finishes because I never go in there like thinking I'm gonna knock this guy out. You know what I mean? I mentally prepare for like the toughest 15 minute war like of my life. You know what I mean? And getting the knockouts, it just comes down to having proper preparation, man. You know what I mean? Like if you stick to the game plan, like it presents itself. And when I see it, I pull the trigger. That's the difference. I see a lot of people like they have openings, but they just can't pull the trigger. A lot of times, I what I call is like I gotta have that fucking mentality. If I see it, I'm like, well, fuck it, here it goes, you know.
Right, that's
And
right.
I've been on the other side too, where I've gotten knocked out, and hey, those nights were just not my nights, but you know, it happens as part of the sport. But yeah, I'm prepared for 15 minutes at all times, and it just happens, bro. You know, you follow the game plan and it presents itself, you know?
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of fighters out there who wish that they had the same natural ability for a knockout finish. It seems like you have never seen the
Yeah,
judges' scorecard, and I gotta
yeah,
say, even the losses that you have, the few that you do have, they've aged very well, and they're against
yeah.
opponents that I think anybody I think would take a loss against them over somebody else.
Right.
Um, with that being said, looking back at the record, you have experience both in middleweight and light heavyweight.
Yeah,
Your debut is at light heavyweight. So do you
yeah.
have a preference? Would you have debuted at middleweight, or are you into light heavyweight for good?
So I was light heavyweight as an amateur.
Okay.
My whole professional, like I was middleweight up until the last two fights. I was like I told you, I was dealing with some injuries and like I really could just like lift and box, you know. So yeah, I got pretty big, I got pretty strong, you know. And light heavyweight, like I was talking to my manager Malky, shout out to Malky. Um, we had a conversation and like, hey, if light heavyweight presents itself, I'll fight light heavyweight, no problem. So opportunities have just been coming at light heavyweight, and I'm like, hey, let's do it. But I feel good at light heavyweight. Like I'm not doing a drastic cut. You know, I walk around normally 230 pounds. So from 230 to 185, I mean, you could imagine that. So at 205, I feel very,
Yeah.
I'm not draining myself. I could really focus on skill building and just, training and on a full belly. I can't be mad at
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's good to hear that you said you'd consider it still because it just goes to speak to your resilience and kind of your dedication to the sport.
Mhm.
But I'm glad we at least we know you're gonna be at light heavyweight for it sounds like a minute now with the muscle you put on.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, if the opportunities keep coming, I'll do it.
yeah,
I can still make middleweight for sure. So yeah, man, I'll do both if I have to.
very nice, very nice.
Uh,
Well, you've also shared the octagon with Dominic Reyes a while back. That was quite a
yeah.
while. I think 2014. Am I right about that?
Yeah, man, we were both babies.
Yeah, he's currently ranked in light heavyweight division. You've worked your
Yeah.
way up to the UFC, and so you guys have come a long way from then.
Mhm.
I know it's early, but is that a fight you'd ever want to revisit down the line? Is maybe after a couple wins under your belt with his rank status?
I mean, if it were to present itself, you know, I wouldn't mind like, running that one back. I feel like I'm a different martial artist than I fought him there, you know.
Mhm.
Um Yeah, he was the better man. I made a mistake. He capitalized, and I'm not really looking at names. I'm just more so like looking at the number. So I want to move forward. So I'm always moving forward. I don't want to move back. So if his name comes in front of me, you know, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm
It's
sure
a
if
cool
he's
story
ever
right there too, though.
That's
It'll
right.
be a
That's what I was
badass
gonna say.
story.
If he's
Yeah,
ever a stepping
yeah,
stone, right, or it lends
yeah.
itself to happening, the UFC is great at bringing these stories back and
Right. Yeah,
bringing it to the fans. So we'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
All right.
Never know.
Let's talk real quick about your opponent specifically, Ming Young Zhang.
Hmm.
A lot of fighters put a lot of focus into studying fight film. Is that something that you incorporate into your camp, or are you doing anything in particular, or do you kind of just prepare for a fight regardless of the opponent?
So, I back in the days I didn't really used to look at my opponents. But I had a conversation with my good friend and coach now Bruno, and he was like, "Hey, bro, like we really gotta like sit, as we climb the ranks and stuff like that." So yeah, I've added that, and I've looked at his fights, and I studied him. I look at his steps, what moments he likes to throw certain things. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel like I said, I've matured as a fighter and I'm just well prepared. So yeah, studying, you know, I'm ready.
I could tell from the other interviews you've done that you are excited for the fight, and I
Mhm.
think it's going to be very impressive. And given that both of you rarely go the distance, I'd have to assume how much of your camp, probably not much, was focused on cardio rather than getting a knockout early. I mean, how prepared are you to take all three rounds on?
I'm always prepared. Like I told you earlier, like every fight I'm prepared to go the distance, whether it's 15 or 25 minutes, like I'm always ready. If the knockout happens, if like I said, if a knockout presents itself, I'm gonna pull the trigger. So I think that's what makes me exciting, and that's why I get like people tune in a lot, because you never know. It's gonna be either me or him. And I'm aware of that, but um percentage wise, it's mostly them.
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the unique aspects that I wanted to ask you about, especially leading up to a debut, is the intensity of fight week, specifically with the UFC.
Mhm.
Like, are you looking forward to the media obligations, the poster signings, just the increased demand of being part of such a big promotion?
I mean, yeah, I mean that's gonna be pretty cool. Like fight week, I usually try to enjoy myself. Like it's we call it, like we rest that week as much as we can. So like we've earned feeling that, you know what I mean? And fighting at Bellator, LFA, that's like normal, like signing posters and all that stuff. So but to tell you the truth, I'm not all of that is just, It's just there. All I'm worried about is to be very good for 15 minutes, November 23rd. Everything else is, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
It sounds like you got the goal clearly cut out in your head.
Yeah. I just need to be good for 15 minutes, November 23. Everything else, I'm just gonna enjoy it, smile, whatever comes. It's gonna be an interesting week. I'm excited.
Nice. So I asked specifically about running it back with Dominic Reyes. We mentioned Joe Pyfer. Now they're your peers in the UFC, and it sounds like right now you're looking at the next fight. But just out of curiosity, even if you don't want to say it, do you have anything planned? Any call out? I'm sure that you got folks to thank, but do you have
Mhm.
anything planned for after you take the win?
No, man. I um I don't really plan
Okay.
beyond right now. Like I told you, if I can give you an answer to that, I'm just looking at the number ahead of me. So whatever is gonna get me closer to number one or the bigger paydays, then that's the person I want. So no specific names. Like I said,
One
if
step at a
those
time,
two,
right?
yeah, if those two names come before me, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Very nice, very nice. Well,
Yeah.
I'm actually absolutely excited to see you debut. I'm delighted
Thank
to
you,
have
brother.
had you on, talk to you. Is there any last message you want to tell people so they can hop on early and watch the fight when you guys finally are in Macau?
No, man, just tune in. Don't blink because it can end at any moment when I fight. So yeah, it's gonna be fun, man. I'm fucking stoked. Yeah.
That's right. I'm not a betting man, but I have a feeling it's probably a safe bet that it's not going to go the distance.
Yeah, you can it's a pretty safe bet. You know what
Awesome.
I mean?
Well,
Yeah.
best of luck with training and thank you again, Ozzy. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, brother.